Welcome, of course, also to my lovely guest joining me all this morning, former Senior Military Intelligence Officer Philip Ingram. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
You're very, very chirpy.
Yeah, well, it's Thursday.
That's a good reason.
I'm going away for the weekend, so it'll be.
Oh, you've got that right. Now, that's the trick. I have to say we've still got lovely weather, but it's getting by this afternoon it's a little bit more bearable for most of the country. Not quite so sweltering hot. We might all get a good night's sleep tonight, folks.
I never complain about the heat because everyone complains about the cold. I'll quite happily put up with a few days of summer if we get our summer.
A few days. I go straight from when it's raining and it's too cold it's too hot. So I go from one to the other. That as my husband said, that's called being a wife. Happy marriage.
Or being British.
Or just being British, yes. We like to talk about the weather. Did you watch the TV debate last night?
I did.
Why not? Why weren't you watching Kevin O'Sullivan? No, come on. You know there's a big debate.
It was a good debate. Well, I had a very nice bottle of wine to accompany me with it. So
I think we all want to live Philip's life, do we not? You had the right idea. Yeah, I had a very nice chilled glass of rosé or two to get through. I have to say, first 20 minutes of it, I didn't think I'd be able to last much longer.
Oh, that shouting going on
Shouting
in the
and the protesting.
Well,
seriously,
yeah.
Well done the BBC. I know what, let's have a debate. Like one of the many, many, many places we can have a debate around the country. No, let's do it in a student building with a glass roof with terrible acoustics and have protesters nearby shouting.
Yeah, exactly.
But also people are saying, Michelle Hussein at one point, the host said, this is them exercising their right to freedom of speech. No, they're not. It's like Steve Brain, everyone shouting over the Prime Minister announcing an election. That's not freedom of speech. That's harassment. That's I'm sorry.
And I'm surprised the police didn't move them on because it is harassment. It's stopping freedom of speech and debate going on.
Yeah, we're trying to hear a debate.
Exactly.
And people go, there's no point of a debate. Well, no, but it's still worth us hearing that debate. Yeah. In the debate, there's no doubt at all, most people would say, I think, regardless of your politics, it was Rishi Sunak who suddenly, I don't know, he'd had a Red Bull or two, he suddenly came out fighting. There was a lot more fight in him. Probably too late for the polls, I think most people are saying. The YouGov poll straight after these immediately said it was a absolutely clear 50-50 who won, who didn't win. And people are told to leave aside your personal views. Now, I've been of the view often, that Keir Starmer's done pretty well in debates. I thought Keir Starmer was pretty wooden. I thought Rishi Sunak a few times was a little bit rude, a little bit shouty. Yeah. Far be it from me to criticise that. But I thought overall, Rishi Sunak did a good job. One of the arguments from many Tories is that, well, if you are 22 points behind in the polls and then the voters thought you did 50-50 in this debate,
then that's good.
Then that's a win.
Yeah.
Did you think it was a win for him?
Well, I do. In looking at the debate and looking at what happened, I do think it's a win. Sunak came out fighting. He put Starmer on the ropes, and then whenever Starmer was clearly collapsing, instead of letting him collapse and the referee count him out, he kept punching him, and that's where he maybe went a little bit too far. But Starmer was stammering at times. He couldn't think quickly enough with the answers to come back to Sunak. And Sunak was asking simple questions.
Yes, no, yeah. I thought that was the best performance I've seen from Rishi Sunak. But again, I doubt whether it's going to make a difference in that sense.
No, I think people have made their minds up.
He kept using this word surrendered. It's been picked up by the Tory newspapers and Daily Mail, the Times, and the Telegraph and others. Basically, he's urging disillusioned Tory voters not to surrender the country to chaos under Labour. Saying, look, he meets people, they say, well, Labour are going to win anyway, and he's saying, don't surrender. And it was again and again and again. I think 15 times in total he actually used that word surrender. They obviously decided this is a key word. Like, don't give up the fight, keep on going. I want to know from our audience, not to know from you as well, but from our audience, what is your reaction to that? To Rishi's now urging disillusioned Tory voters, the people who voted in 2019 for either for Tories for the first time or had been long-time Tory voters who are now deserting the party, not voting at all, voting for Reform UK, many of them, some voting for Lib Dems, and many voting for Labour as well. What is your reaction to him saying, don't surrender the country to chaos under Labour? Give us a call. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can send a WhatsApp to the same number. You can text on 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV as well. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Love to hear your thoughts on all of that. What did you make of that?
Well, I thought it was very interesting, and he put a lot of emotion behind it as well. You could tell that in his body language. And I think he's aiming it at those that are going to go and vote Reform and not vote Tory. Because, again, if you look at the voting statistics across a number of the constituencies, Labour's percentage of the vote isn't actually growing hugely. The Tories' percent of the vote is being sliced away completely and being split amongst other parties, with a little bit of it going back to Labour, but it's not by the sorts of numbers that you'd expect if there was a sound set of policies.
And even most Labour people I speak to don't feel necessarily enthused, and I think that's part of the woodenness of Keir Starmer. I think it's going to be very interesting actually to watch, as it's very likely in a week's time, Keir Starmer being Prime Minister, because he is, and the same issue with Gordon Brown. Gordon Brown was good at making, apparently, throwing money around to everybody, putting everyone on the payroll, but he was good at making these big set piece speeches you do as Chancellor. You don't really do anything off the cuff as Chancellor. Prime Minister, you've got to make 15 decisions a day. You're going to get some of them wrong because you don't have all the information. You have to make the decision then, and that is just what that is what governing it. That's governing about. But also, you're going to have to react to things on the hoof and things. And I just don't think that he's that kind of man. He's obviously a highly intelligent man. He's been very successful in his former career as a lawyer and then head of the DPP. But the key thing is, I think he's someone who needs to read his brief. He needs to memorise it. And a few times you could see he sort of lost the thread of his script. As opposed to
the tabs on his legal brief weren't there for him to flick too quickly to remind himself of the line to come
I
out
wonder
with.
how quickly that will come undone.
Well, I think it'll not just come undone very quickly in Parliament, from the Tories in opposition, assuming they form the opposition. It's not the Lib Dems or someone else. But I think if he gets a very large majority, it'll come undone very quickly within his party, because he'll start to have to be thinking on his feet with regard to how he's going to balance off the policies within the party.
And when you look at the people who've been very successful at sort of keeping parties together and things, the Camerons, the Blairs, they're very good at just thinking on their feet and just sort of almost like dancing around these things. And the amount of time, God, when I was political editor, the amount of times we'd be covering Tony Blair, it was like the toughest week ever, P&Qs, whatever. He'd absolutely walk it, I thought, but by the way, I thought the person who the man who most really grabbed the mood of the nation in the debate last night was an audience member who asked a question to both men at the same time. Here's a little watch and a listen of what that audience member had to say.
Mr Sunak, I think you made a fair job of being Chancellor, but you're a pretty mediocre Prime Minister. Sir Keir, I think that your strings are being pulled by very senior members of the Labour Party. Are you two really the best we've got to be the next Prime Minister of our great country?
Well, the clip actually excludes the very large round of applause that happened as a result of that. And again, he was very polite. He's not saying, "Oh, you're useless," and it's the same feeling we also, I think, a lot of us have about the US presidential debate. We've got that debate overnight. It's going to be about sort of 2, 3 in the morning UK time. And it's, and you've got these two sort of, one's an octogenarian, one's almost an octogenarian. And people, is this the best we've got? And I think that's what a lot of people are saying here.
And I think that's part of the problem, and that will bring in a degree of voting apathy. It's not only are people confused about the lack of substance behind a lot of the policies that are out there, and the avoidance of questions like how are we going to pay for it, because we all know we're going to have to pay for it somehow. But it's that do I want him or do I want him? Oh my goodness!
Well, look, we've got more clips, just a few more clips from the debate, but I'm going to play this a little bit later with some guests. I want to get on to some other topics here. Just one other thing, there was a YouGov poll that gave a verdict of 50-50 last night, but there was also a big MRP poll, another one of those big sort of epic polls. And that was predicting, a massive Labour majority, winning sort of 450 seats or something silly like that. But I think one of the most crucial takeaways of this was Tories back to sort of, worst results since 1900, absolute and utter complete annihilation towards it. They wouldn't have enough people to sit on select committees at this point, even to the point where the Liberal Democrats could actually be the second party. The official opposition, which would be an extraordinary turn of events for them. But also, interestingly, Reform UK under Nigel Farage to win 18 seats. Now, bearing in mind, polls 2 weeks ago were saying 0 seats. And then we had one suggesting 1 or 2 seats. And now we're looking at Reform winning 18 seats, according to this poll. And again, you have to take polls to a certain extent with a pinch of salt, because especially when, even in the polls on the verdicts on the debate last night, there's some ranging to 60%, 50%. There's a massive margin of error on these things. But that is quite a big change of picture for reform, isn't it?
It is quite a big change of picture reform. I wonder if on the 5th of July, the day after, we're going to see the CEO of different poll companies being forced to resign for getting it so wrong. There's so much of a difference that's happening here. I think that just reinforces the fact that that people don't know. The trends are the things I think that are important to look at, and the trends are saying Labour are going to win with a very big majority. But the others are fighting, and I also suspect that whenever pollsters are going out and asking people, saying, are you going to vote Tory? Those that are even sitting on the fence or thinking about it are going, I'm not really going to say. And they'll say the same with, are you going to vote Reform, or are you going to vote?
Well, there is always, exactly. Where, I think that shy Tory vote, shy Reform vote. We should say, and I think it's going to be absolutely fascinating. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
It'll be very interesting.
I'll be here.
You're watching it.
I'll be here 10 p.m. I'll have the exit poll at 10 p.m. next Thursday night. I'll do my show in the morning. We can't talk politics. Send us lots of ideas, by the way, what you want us to talk about on that day. We can't do any politics. You're going to be in with us, aren't you? And then it's politics all the way from 10 p.m. Then Mike overnight as well. I mean, it's going to be rip-roaring. Then we're back with you, of course, on the Friday. But, this is our bread and butter. This is stuff we love. Let's talk about the betting scandal, because that's, again, along with, the bizarre and terrible decision by Rishi Sunak to leave the commemorations for D-Day early. The betting scandal is one of the other things that has seriously cut through. We now know that the police are going to be looking into not just close protection officers and other police officers who may have actually, certainly if they did place bets with insider information, would certainly be a breach of the law, but they're also probing a potential misconduct in public office. So looking at MPs or candidates, ministers, aides as well, I think they would come under that. Because there's a big question mark about whether or not anyone's actually broken the law, other than the potential alleged allegation against a police officer. But the latest claim is that a Tory MP, Philip Davies, that he is now a candidate, that he has bet £8,000 that he would lose his seat at the general election. Now, without discussing the constituency itself. Now, he has basically refused to confirm or deny. What's it got to do with you, whether I did or I didn't? He told the Times newspaper, I hope to win. I'm busting gut to win. I expect to lose, he said. Now,
was that the bet, or was that his seat?
But, I mean, that's an extraordinary sum of money, if it is the case. Again, how does this look to you, as someone not involved in the political world, in terms of, people calling it gambling gate? Is this a big scandal, or is it just tacky, or is it an indicator of how many politicians, aides and others working in Westminster view these very important democratic events, elections?
I think it underpins the moral component of our political landscape. And it's happening not just with the Tories, but we've seen it with police officers in close protection, and we're now seeing it. We've seen it with Labour candidates in different ways as well. And if people think that this is in any way right, betting on your home turf, your home game, footballers aren't allowed to do it. It's illegal on Premier League football for footballers to bet on the outcome of the game.
And if you owned a company and you knew you were about to go under, you wouldn't be allowed to bet. Your company would go under, and then and
that comes into insider trading in the financial institutions in the cities, and therefore this should come under that. And there should be a law that means that if people are doing that, they're doing it at their home turf, something that they can potentially influence, they should be prosecuted. Full stop.
I wonder how much influence backbench MPs have on a lot of these things, but there we are. Let's also talk about this ongoing battle between Kemi Badenoch and David Tennant, the Doctor Who actor, when he basically said he just wished that she didn't exist, and he wished her no harm, he just wished she'd shut up, basically because she, by the way, let's check our notes, what is her job? As Women's and Equalities Minister, has spoken up about women's rights, and apparently doesn't like that because he's fully signed up to trans ideology, believes, quite mistakenly, that he has a non-binary child. He doesn't, he has a son.
Yes.
There isn't any such thing as a non-binary child. I think it's absolutely cruel for anyone to even think. Frankly, call in social services is what I'd say.
It's child abuse.
I really think
telling your child that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, again, if my child believes something, other than Father Christmas does exist, obviously. Tooth Fairy's Father Christmas. Yeah. Other than that, you should be honest with your children, but there we are. But Dawn Butler, of course Dawn Butler's decided to get in on this. Of course, she's a Labour, was a Labour MP standing in the election, but she's accused of bringing Labour into disrepute after she agreed with David Tennant's remark, and she said that she agreed. She wanted the minister to shut up and wish she didn't exist. Yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary how many people on the left, and this is peculiarly on the left in Westminster politics, will absolutely bleat about any mild criticism. We were talking yesterday, David Cameron saying, "Calm down, dear," to Angela Eagle. Yeah. I mean, literally people in tears and crying and weeping and wailing. The world's fallen apart. Yeah. But when we've actually had, two MPs, one on Labour, one on Tory side, murdered because of their political views, Kemi Badenoch being told by a two-bit actor that she should not exist and he wished she would shut up. And then another female MP agreeing with him. I mean, I just find the double standards extraordinary. They
are extraordinary. David Tennant, he's but all actors and all lovies are out for the clickbait. So he was getting his clickbait. But whenever you're getting MPs or former MPs starting to do that, it ties in with Angela Rayner's scum comments. Yeah. Language is really, really important, and language has effects. And as you said, we've had two MPs murdered, and many others leaving because of the threats. Exactly, and it stimulates those threats. It stimulates actions by unhinged individuals across society, and people have to be extremely careful about the language instead of stirring hate. But also the idea that you want someone you disagree with to not exist or to shut up. Exactly. I was discussing this with Helen Joyce on the show yesterday from Sex Matters. We don't need the opposite side. We're on our side of the debate to, on behalf of speaking up for women's rights and for children's rights as well. We don't need the other side to shut up because we're quite happy to argue with them because we know we've got the arguments on our side. The logic. Exactly. No, if you have to have the other side to shut up, then it means you don't understand your argument. A couple more stories I want to whip through. Might take a break in between, but first up, junior doctors, 5-day strike began at 7 o'clock this morning. Quite relieved that my daughter almost broke her ankle, but thankfully didn't yesterday. So we had 3 hours in A&E. Fantastic treatment, I have to say. Not thank God it wasn't today. Although there was a sign in the emergency department saying we're very busy due to illness, short staff. Please go to another hospital. They did that. Actually, was the sign in A&E, but thanks for that. Yeah. But not quite sure. Just go to another hospital is the solution to problems. But there we are. But 5-day strike. Do you think this is very political? The timing of the strike. It's completely political. The unions know that no one can make a political decision now, so there can be no answer to this. So all this is doing, in the run up to the general election, is putting political pressure. And I don't think it should be allowed. It's unnecessary political pressure. It's going to be interesting to see how Labour manage to just get everyone around a table and solve this if they're the government at the end of next week, because that's what they say they're going to do. Or are they going to pay the 35%? I know how I'd solve it. But, how would you solve it? Well, I'd turn around to the junior doctors because junior doctors cover from those that have just joined to those that are actually quite senior before they get got 10 years experience. I mean, you're most likely to be treated by a junior doctor. Yeah. So we need junior doctors to stay inside the NHS. So you turn around and say, OK, junior doctors, we will write off your student fees if you stay with us for 10 or 15 years and sign that contract. Bang, you've given an incentive to the most junior doctors. You've given them a big amount of money without it actually costing us anything because we've already paid their education fees. And you could do that. That's an interesting one. You've learned that here. Yeah, there we are. Philip, I mean, I put him in charge of quite a lot of things, to be fair.